Podcast.
Welcome to the BrokeMans Podcast. Today I have with me Levi and Sonny. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, we're going to start off with quick gratitude. I am very grateful for waking up this morning, being able to reset, and having positive friends in my life.
I would say I'm grateful for the understanding of others. Yesterday, was at work and got sent home early because just on overtime already. And they just looked at me and they were like, hey, you need to take care of yourself. And I didn't think I needed to, but I got home last night and I slept hard. Like I was out. So grateful for the understanding, and I am grateful for the ability to kind of like what you said, Gary, to reset and actually take a step back and look at the bigger picture of things too.
I'm grateful for small challenges, and I'm grateful for people being there to help with those small challenges.
You talking about small people?
All right, and
challenges?
then we are getting into today with I've had a lot of questions with this, and it's journaling. The importance of journaling, how to actually start journaling, where the need for journaling comes from. And my need for journaling came from a calling of my being, who I am, and who I was, who I could be. My past was letting me know that, hey, there's something that we need to understand from the past in order to progress in the present and in the future, which is who you're becoming. And yeah, my past was calling out to me like, hey, we need to address something. And when I started doing that, it happened. And yeah.
So this is actually a great question for you too. How was your past calling out to you? Like, how was it? Like, what did
I wasn't
that look
living.
like?
I wasn't living right, and I knew it. And I can tell everything, all my moves, everything I was doing, how I was hanging, the people I was hanging out with, how I was acting, how I was delivering myself to people was off, and I can feel that, and I knew it. That moral compass is strong. That moral compass is very strong. But we'll get into the questions. What do you guys feel that journaling can help with?
I know throughout my life I've used journaling to just kind of express how I'm feeling, especially when I'm going through a hard point. I would say that it hasn't always been something that I'd use on a daily basis, but it's something that, especially if there's something that I'm struggling with, something that's really weighing on me, it seems like the best way for me to get that out is writing it down. Then I can look at it from a different point of view, and I'm able to really see what I'm feeling there and able to kind of work through it in a different way and get a new perspective on it.
I'm kind of right there with you too. I mean, it's helped me process a lot of things too. Like, from dreams that I've had to situations that I've been to at work to my personal life and everything too. Things with family, which we've talked about that
Yes.
numerous times. I mean, actually processing through some of the feelings that you have with, family trauma and everything too, and sitting down and being able to kind of dissect each little part and say like, okay, there's a lot of feelings right here. And it's kind of like a, ball of yarn that's all tangled up and
Yes.
everything, and being able to kind of stretch that yarn out and just kind of
Ooh,
divide it up
I like
into
that way.
sections.
I like that
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
Dang. Let's go over this, and I'll go over the points for it as well. But before that, your question that you asked me, great question, by the way. Yeah, I didn't think about that. So great question. You put me on the spot. That's why I was like, oh. That's the only reason I was kind of rude when I answered, because you just put me on the spot. I was
You're
like, I wasn't expecting it.
Damn, Sonny.
But if journaling is calling out to you, listen. If journaling is calling out to you, listen. If your moral compass is yelling at you, or your past, or so much trauma or pain from your past, or even the recent, even the day of, write it down. If journaling is calling out to you, it's not stupid, it's not silly, it's real. And it helps people, us specifically man, it helps us. It helps me regulate, it helps me figure things out, it helps me problem solve. But we'll get into why journaling is important. We'll each hit different points, but go ahead.
Do you mind if I ask a question real quick? When did you
I
guys
might answer.
Okay. When did you guys start journaling?
All honesty,
Yeah.
there was different points in my life. I remember when I was young and I was a kid, and I thought it was first I thought it was silly because you hear about diary and you think women.
Mm-hmm.
You think women.
The stigma.
Yeah, you think the stigma. You think women, and then I was in a lot of pain growing up as a kid. I was in a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of hurt. Vicissitudes were strong and they were constant, and I had to figure something out. So I just started writing. Didn't even know what journaling was or anything. I just started writing it down and documenting my life as a young kid. And then when I became an adult, it was every so often, but it hit hard about 3 years ago.
Okay.
When I was like, I need to stop skipping out on this, and I need to be on it.
Being intentional with it.
Being intentional with it. I remember in my early 20s, it called out to me as well, and I started documenting my life. I even have those notebooks still here.
Do you really?
And I go back and read them. I'm like, oh my gosh, we came from a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
We came from a dark place. Even as a man, I was times when I was crying every other day. Life was so tough.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was by myself, and I felt like I was alone. And when I had that journal, it was me crying out, and I was at peace. I was therapy for myself, real therapy for myself, and it was actually working. When I go back and look, I see my progression. I see my mindset. I see the love in myself has grown. I see my self-care, my self-love, my motivation, my growth mindset. It all grew from me journaling, and I was doing it every day, page full, just all my feelings. And getting everything out there and looking at them like, okay, that's me. I get to look at myself in from another perspective of self. But yeah.
What about you, Levi?
So for me, I would say I started consistently journaling the beginning of October. And there's still times that I'll slip for a couple of days and then I'll try and get back into it. But throughout my life, I've done it on occasion, like off and on. Like mainly for me, it's when I'm dealing with something that's extremely difficult for me to just like keep in and something that I don't necessarily want to share. And then I can look back on that in the future and then I see where I was at in that place and like where my headspace was. And I can become more aware of that as well. So I can see if I'm like falling back into that kind of pattern or something like that. But it's not been something too consistent for me until recently, and it's something that I'm trying to make sure I'm doing more.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I'm trying to do it more now is because I'm trying to become more aware of how I'm feeling, and I'm more conscious of that so that I can share that if I need to, and so that I can, I don't know, just grow from that point.
What about you, Sonny?
So I'm kind of like you guys both too. Like it's been kind of off and on and everything, but I have been consistently journaling since I actually moved out here. I feel like I have kind of the free space to do so, and it's helped me significantly with a number of different situations in my life and everything too. But there was a time where like I still have some of the journals that I had back when I like just got out of the military and everything, and I look back and I'm like, oh my God, you poor soul, what was wrong with you? And I've used a couple different journals too. I've used like prompted journals, I've used unprompted journals and everything too. And I've even taken like my journal to like therapy with me and stuff like that too. There was a gentleman that I went and saw for a while. His name was Esteban. He was my therapist for a while. And he gave me a prompt that like changed my entire perspective on like life, I would say in general. And helped me significantly. But yeah, I would say definitely off and on. There was, again, time in my younger years where I would, like didn't know what I was doing, but I would just write like, I'm angry, I want to leave. Like just that little kid shit almost.
I did poetry when I was young.
Yeah.
I did journaling and I did poetry.
Okay.
I was just writing rhymes of how I felt and whatnot. And did you have something to ask? Because I'll ask them right after.
I was just going to
I believe
say,
they call those raps.
even the simplicity of I'm angry is that's you're getting something out of that.
I agree.
You're able to write it and express it.
You look back at that like as an adult now and you're like, man, like that was just some little kid shit.
No, it was real.
But now like actually seeing it like everything come to fruition and like how it actually helps us is huge. I mean, like you said too, little things like I'm angry. Okay, why are you angry? And you just like, how did we get to this point, kind of thing.
And
So
yeah, even as a kid, if you're writing "I'm angry," there's more to it than that. That might just be the only way that you know how to verbally express the feeling that you have. It might be anxiety.
Correct.
It might be like worry about something specific. Like there's a ton of different outlets that can like show through.
yeah, we talk about underlying emotions and everything, whereas anger is the only one, but there's so many underneath too. It's like an iceberg and everything. Like we only see 20% of what's going on up top, where the other 80% is down below, and we just can't see what's going on or can't feel it.
And I think the awesome part about journaling is it helps you understand your emotional value and your emotional level on a deeper level because you're working through stuff so often and you're saying, oh, I have this same feeling I had when this happened. I know it's something that's upsetting me, but there's more to it.
Yeah.
What's that more to it? What do I need to look into with that?
For sure.
Okay. I like that a lot. So let's go over reasons of why to journal. The first one I have is, well, the first two I have is self-reflection and organization. It helps process emotions, writing thoughts out instead of overthinking, like you said with the yarn.
Can I actually touch on this real quick? Because I think this is...
As soon as I finish, you can,
okay.
my guy. Love you, man.
Love you too.
It's better than keeping everything in your head. And you're making a plan out for what's going on in life. But go ahead.
So I actually went and saw... there was this gentleman at a church I used to go to. He came in and was talking about relationships and everything, and he was specifically talking about like the differences between men and women. And I think this is an awesome analogy for how journaling can help too. So he related a man's brain to a warehouse, okay? Whereas in this warehouse, a man has, boxes for each thought and everything too. None of the boxes touch. Everything is very organized kind of thing, but we can only get out one box at a time. If we get out more than one box, chaos ensues and everything like that. In a man's brain, that's very difficult. Whereas a woman's brain is kind of that ball of yarn. Everything is interconnected, like house is connected to kids are connected to the car's connected to school's connected to, bills we got to pay and everything like that. So there's just this chaos that ensues that a man can't process. And I think for a man journaling, if we have that chaotic point where we have more than one box open kind of thing, we have, the kids box, we have, the work box, we have the home box, we have all these different boxes open, it's difficult for us to focus on one thing. And I think journal actually gives us the opportunity to kind of get everything back in order, pull one box out at a time that we were trying to focus on before, and actually sit down and talk about them.
That connects to one of the points of why journaling, which is it can help you problem solve.
Yeah.
You write your problems out on paper, you can see it. It's not up here trying to figure it out. Oh, forgot, squirrel. Nope. You write it out on paper and you can see it, and you begin to problem solve everything. What's another reason on why to journal? Actually, when it says self-reflection, why is that important?
So I would say self-reflection is huge. It's the one thing that's going to help you grow as a person. One thing that I feel like I have said before, and it's like something that I think most people should live by, is if you're not growing, then you're falling back. Like you need to always have that mindset of how you're going to progress. And I feel like with journaling, you're able to become more aware of your emotions, more aware of ways that you've slipped, because we all slip with our emotions, where we let anger get the best of us, where we let negative self-talk creep into our head. But if we're willing to write that down and journal about it, then we're more aware of those things as they come up, and we're more aware of those patterns so that we can break those patterns and start a new one.
I like that. You can, inside your journal, another reason why, you can unload all your fears. Everything, insecurities, frustrations, and you can do it constructively. You can work through things, a constructive way to work through things, and it's very, very important. And there was another point that I did want to bring up. Not even a point. I want to ask a question so we can break down for others out there. And take this question, take it further than what it is. How do you actually sit down take the safe space and journal? How did yours start?
I think it starts mainly with having a schedule.
Deeper, more than I'm looking for more than that. Sorry, that's not a challenge question
No,
or
you're good.
anything. Because I remember me being in a sad place, and I remember.
How did I get
I
to
was
the
going to
point
say
where I started
there's a
journaling?
cataclysmic event that happens
Yes,
that forces
yes. And I remember grabbing that journal and finding a notebook. And we always look at notebooks very interestingly. We just look at it like, man, we could write something down, we could draw something. And I remember grabbing that notebook. I was in a sad place.
It's a creative mindset.
Yeah. And sitting down and just looking up, grabbing a pen and holding it, having no idea how to start, and just sitting there thinking, and just began to kind of cry through the notebook and writing out how I was feeling. That's where mine kind of started at.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. There has to be some sort of a cataclysmic or a defining moment. It's kind of like, we see it in the superhero movies and everything, that origin story, that event that sends the hero into,
No, we ascend. Yeah.
we ascend to something greater.
Now we start aiming up.
Yep. I think there are, especially for men, there are points where we hit that ceiling kind of thing. And it takes a great amount of force or some event or something to break us through that ceiling to get to the next level kind of thing.
Yes.
So, and I think journaling is a great way to do that because it gives you that self-reflection, gives you that self-awareness and everything too. I think I'm gonna share a prompt on this one if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think mine was actually the prompt that my therapist Esteban gave me when I first started going to him. I was just in there a couple of weeks, was going through a lot of different things, and he was like, "All right, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go home. I want you to find an old picture of yourself, somewhere between the age of 8 and 12." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "I want you to write down what you would say to that, that kid. What would you say to him? What are some things that happened? What are some things that you would tell him in the moment?" And I tell you what, that was my breakthrough moment when it came to journaling.
Okay.
And it was so incredibly, it made me so incredibly vulnerable, to actually sit down and actually have this picture out of this little kid, this little me kind of thing, and sit there and be like, okay, what am I going to say to this kid? This kid's going through a lot right now as it is. I remember when the picture was taken and everything. He's going through so much. And for me, being, God, 27, 28 at the time, and sitting down and being like, okay, what do I say to this kid? Like, and it was so hard. But then I started thinking about like all the things that we've been through between then and now. And I'm like, man, it gets better.
It gets better. It gets better. It gets better. Did you want to touch on something real quick, Levi? Before what you said with your breakthrough, I'll share my breakthrough, even that ties into me, like the creation of the podcast. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say my breakthrough was just through situations going on in my life, I was able to realize that I wasn't on the level that I wanted to be on emotionally, like with how I express myself with. So
Not yet. Sorry. He's over here yawning in the mic. Like, bro, what?
I wasn't even like making noise. I was yawning. You started it.
Yawning in a mic.
All right, so I started.
I'm sorry. That was.
All right, come on.
So I started journaling just because I came to the realization that me as a person, I wasn't where I wanted to be emotionally and with my ability to share. I know for a fact I'm an introverted person. I know that sometimes I struggle with sharing my thoughts with other people. And I feel like the first way to get a jump on that was to share my thoughts with myself.
Question: is your mom introverted?
Yeah, she is. She can be.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because your dad is not
He's
at all.
definitely extroverted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what. Sorry, just wanted to ask it real quick.
All right, so we'll breakthrough moments, and we'll get very specific and very vulnerable with this podcast. And in 2022, I remember I started a new journal because I was having visions of creating the podcast, and I wasn't listening. I finally listened, and I titled it "One Summer of 2022." Page one, first entry. That's what I titled it. "One Summer of 2022." And it goes, the BrokeMans Podcast came to me in a daydream's vision. Sometime in early 2021, the name The BrokeMans Podcast came from a place of being mentally and financially broken. When things aren't going your way and you've been down bad in a financial point of view, with bills piling up, the two can go hand in hand and things can end very badly. And then next I remember this is either the same night or the next morning, I had a realization from journaling. I've gotten into some life-changing mental altercations with myself. This summer, I've gotten a chance, by the grace of God, to be completely isolated and alone. Being extremely introverted, I can see how this isn't a good thing. So I realized that me being introverted and identifying with it so strongly was hurting me. It was hurting me. And I had to change things I had to look within and change things about myself to get to that point where I was like, okay, I need to switch. I need to learn how to be extroverted as well. And it's a good thing. And I'm not done yet.
I was itching.
All right. So this time alone has given me time to find my authentic self and love myself. I have to admit that I thought I was going crazy. And as sad as it is, I thought I was about to check myself inside a mental institution. It got that bad. It got that bad to where I thought I was going that crazy.
I'm just gonna say the Grippy Sock vacations are nice.
Okay. The time I spent alone transformed my mind and body, giving me mental peace and clarity. In a time where the price of living and gas were very high and constantly going up, I found some peace and appreciation for life, for living, and love while being broke. I've learned the importance of meditation and the importance of prayer. I needed to learn myself from a sort of third-person point of view. I believe that the higher power, or God, as to whoever you want to call it, needed me to do this. While feeling extremely abandoned and lonely, I had friendships end, friends not show up when I thought I needed them the most, family die. I found a way to dance with peace and surrender to God or the higher power and all the love that I had to offer. And peace to the divine.
So one of the things that hit me about that entry the most was being truly alone. And I like that because as an extrovert, and I know you guys know this.
Dear God, do we know this? Go ahead.
You're an extrovert?
I know it's
Really?
Crazy.
it's
Never
crazy.
thought.
I know.
Would have never thought.
You know, you surround yourself with people so much that it just gets exhausting. Just like you guys get exhausted in social settings, you know, very quickly and everything. Extroverts get the same way too. And I completely understand where you guys are coming from with like having that self-isolation and everything and finding peace and serenity and, you know, just solitude in it. And I just want to say I think that was incredible and I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one thing I liked about it was you were able to talk about being self-isolating and how it was something that you do enjoy sometimes, but you were also able to be critical of it to show that you weren't always successful and that wasn't helping you in any way. So then you realized, okay, I can have my alone time, but something that's just as important is me spending time with others. Otherwise, I get to a headspace where I feel like I'm not doing what I need to be doing, or I'm feeling like I need to be checked into a mental hospital or something along those lines. And I think when you isolate for so long by yourself, that's something that can come up. Mm-hmm. And that now you have that documented. So I don't think that's something that you'll let yourself get into a habit of doing again.
Yes, pay very close attention to your social battery. It's a real thing.
Absolutely.
It's good to be healthily isolated, if I'm saying it correctly. And it is also good to know when your social battery is running low. You need to recharge and reset. And it's okay. So you need to pay very close attention to it. Else it can throw you off. And it will throw you off. And you'll feel like, no, I no longer need to be social. I need to be alone again. I'm introvert for a reason. I need to just be alone. And that's what I was identifying with for a while. And that was not it. I didn't realize. I was like, okay, I didn't have the knowledge of all this until I started journaling and writing it down and seeing it and like, okay, putting pieces together. I was okay. I need to isolate sometimes to recharge myself and to think and to get healthy and whatnot, to restart or reset. But I also need to go out there and be social and do something in the world and aim up and go out there and serve and help.
Absolutely. Yeah, a break cannot become where you stay at. So when you're taking a break from people, taking a break from society, if that becomes the only place that you're staying in, you're going to get stuck.
Yeah. All right, we'll go back to, you have something to say? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, like, you know, do you mind if I read an entry real quick, or
Go for it, man. No, please do.
So this is one that I had from the beginning of this year, actually, when I first moved out here.
Before you do that, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Taking the time out to pick up a pen and pick up a piece of paper and sit on your desk is very important. But we talked about the times where you just don't have that and you're at work. No, you're good.
No,
You're
no,
about to
I'm
read that.
just-
But we have times when we're at work and we don't have that. The only thing we have is our phone, and the only times like if we're somewhere and we have something that's in our head, pull your phone out, write it down. It's very important. It's needed. There's been times where I took from what was on my phone, I wrote it down on the paper too, just so I can keep up with my entries. I'm like, okay, I can still reflect in case my phone gets lost or something.
Yeah.
So we're not saying a pen and a piece of paper is the only thing, but it's a great way and it's authentic.
It's tangible.
Go ahead, say that again.
I said it's tangible.
Why so?
So
Why is
phones.
tangible so good?
So you got to think about this. I mean, technology eventually will fail and everything too. This is tangible. This is something that you can touch, you can feel. This is something that your emotions can run through your arm to the pen, onto the paper, and everything too.
I like that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But no, I wasn't trying to point you out with the phone. You just reminded me of something we spoke about, and I want to bring that up.
Yeah.
But sorry for interrupting. Please read that.
No.
Yeah.
So, you know, yours felt very positive and everything. You know, it was that self-reflection and everything too, where you were able to deconstruct kind of what you're going through, what
Yeah.
you want to do, and kind of bring it forward kind of thing. And there are times where you are so deep in your feelings, you don't know how to deconstruct that. So you're just like, you're asking questions that you don't have the answers to, but sometimes it helps you kind of deconstruct that in a sense. So this is one from the beginning of the year. This is actually right after I first moved out here. I was going through some stuff. And I was like, I'm angry. I'm broken. Why am I never good enough? Why am I too nice for everybody? Do I ask too much? Do I love too hard? Should I just be alone? Should I accept defeat? What do I do from here, and where do I go? And that was it was an entry. I was at work, I remember, and I had no idea what to do. And I was just like, I needed to get something out somehow. And that was my phone, kind of like what you said too. My phone was the only thing I had. And it was hard. It was so incredibly hard. So, but it gave me the opportunity to like sit down and just like get it out, like get it out of here and put it somewhere. So that way I can reflect on it later.
Do you feel like it gave you a little bit of peace of mind in that time where you were struggling with those thoughts, but you didn't have a way to express them?
1,000% yes. 1,000% yes. I didn't know, you know, like I was saying earlier, it was a ball of yarn up here, and I had to put it somewhere because I couldn't handle it at that moment. So I had to put it somewhere. So I put it in my phone.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I could do. And then I remember I got home later and I started truly sitting down and reflecting on each one of those questions. Okay, why am I not good enough? Well, I am good enough.
Yeah.
I'm good enough for the right people.
You had to get it out of your head.
Correct.
And I think that's the big part too. You were able to get it out of your head so that negativity wasn't being fed in your head and just constantly growing.
Correct.
It's something where you're able to write it down and say, okay, this is something I need to unpack. I might not have time to unpack it right now, but at least I have it written down
Yep.
and I know where I'm going and I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
Versus leaving it in your head and letting it just stay jumbled in there. You're never going to get anywhere with that.
For sure.
Start to crash and you get crazy.
Yep.
It can make you real crazy. So this journaling, why journal? Because it helps with self-awareness, the constant reflection, constantly reflecting and understanding yourself even more deeply and going inward more. You need to go more inward to start to change. If you want to actually change as a person to become more, you need to go inward to the core of who you are, the core of your being. That's a
Absolutely.
long way to go.
Yeah.
That is a long way to go, and that is a tough road. It also specifies and clarifies goals that you have and priorities. You can use a journal as a task list,
Yep.
like
And
you
it-
told me before.
Yep.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it can also help you break down your goals. It can help you make sure that you're putting stuff down that's realistic, stuff that has a time, all of that. There's different tools that people use to write down their goals. I think one acronym is called like SMART. I can pull up what it means, but that's one that people use all the time, and it just helps you break down whether a goal is realistic, whether it makes sense, whether it's something that you can actually achieve, and it gives you something to aim for. It gives you a target.
Absolutely. Track progress in your life. Use a journal. Track the progress. If you're growing in life and you're steady growing, track that progress and look back and realize how much you have accomplished.
I found it.
Go
so,
for
SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So all of those things just going to help with your goal and help make it so that you're able to actually work for something.
Your changes in life and overcoming things, you want to see them. You want to see them. You want to realize how far you come. And I do remember with this specifically, when I was in my early 20s and I was boxing and becoming a professional boxer. And it didn't work out the way I wanted. When sports fail you, when music fails you, well, it doesn't fail you. It's not for you. It's not your path or on your journey. And you have to learn how to give that up. And I didn't know how to give that up until I actually started journaling and figuring out that's not me. I'm not just this. I'm not just that. I'm not just football. I'm not just boxing. I can do more. It's not working out for me. Being honest and real with yourself when you are journaling.
Yeah.
Being honest and real. If you can't be real with yourself and raw with it, who can you be real with? So when you're journaling, be honest. Talk about the good, talk about the bad, talk about the ugly, the fears, what scares you. Like, get that all out on paper so you can see it and know what to actually do.
Yeah, it's hard, but I think it's a lot better than keeping it in your head. If you keep it in your head, you're not actually addressing the issues.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up sports and everything too. There's so much, like, when you give something up, like music or sports or, a lifestyle or, anything like that. Like, I wish I would have journaled what I was feeling when I left the military. I really wish I would have, because, man, that was, like, I still remember how I feel and everything, but I feel like it would have helped me process differently than how I did. And give me that tangible thing to hold on to look at and be like, man, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like, why am I doing this? Because if I would have, I guarantee if I would have looked down and saw, like, hey, like, you're acting like this, you're being like this, I would have been like, okay, fucker, like, you need to get your shit together and not be acting like this. For those of you who've been in the military, like, they do this, transitional assistance program and stuff like that. And it's very surface level and whatnot. They tell you some things, but they don't tell you everything. Journal. Just journal. I mean, that's going to give you so much more peace of mind and everything than what you realize. And I know it seems like it's a lot and it seems like it's weakness and everything, but truly it's strength, and it's immeasurable strength in my mind. And it just helps. It helps so incredibly much, and I'm very thankful for it.
when I started journaling, I started describing myself. And I started describing my day. I started describing the things I was going through, good, bad. We talked about the ugly. I started to actually document my life. And as I remember one of my journal entries, I was describing myself as a person, black man, this, that. And from that, like something else popped in my head. And I remember body issues that I had, body insecurities that I had. I was like, okay. Like you start really discovering things about yourself, things that are popping up in your head. Mm-hmm. Like you really, like you said, you really get to pull that yarn out and straighten it out and figure out what's really going on.
It's so funny just how much is underneath all that too. Like we're looking at like one strand of yarn here, and right below it there's another strand that kind of almost connects to it.
There's so many people. Yeah. Go ahead.
There's levels to it. So I think it's really cool because then once you pull that strand out, you're like, oh shit, there's so much going on here. Like I didn't even realize it, and
it helped me. Yeah. It helped me realize that I need to meditate, and it helped me realize that I need to put myself out there, and so I can receive the positive energy. Mm-hmm. It really does. Once you start describing yourself and describing all your fears, the good, bad, the ugly, and whatnot, and what's missing in life, it helped me figure out what I needed. It really did. So journaling is a very, very powerful tool.
So if I can ask a question real quick, do you think prompted journals are okay?
Yes. I'm okay with very much so. Any type of journaling. I don't care. Just do it. Do something. Like I said earlier, I never went by a prompted journal. I've tried it before, actually. So I do find that they're very useful. Do it. If this is one of those things you have, please do it. If it helps you guide yourself to what you actually need to. And it keeps you very consistent. And it keeps you accountable, actually. You have to write on this day or this time. It keeps you very accountable. So I'm all for it. I don't care what version it is. I'm all for it. I remember sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
When we talked about the social battery, I remember I abide by my social battery.
Yeah.
I do. I abide by it strongly because I realized how much I actually need to listen to my social battery. Like, okay, we're done. We're very done. Go ahead.
So one thing I think that we should clarify is how many different types of journaling there is, because one thing that I know people might think is, when I'm journaling, I have to write everything that I'm feeling in that exact moment down. But there's so many different ways you can journal. There's so many different ways that you can kind of express yourself. And if it's not something where you feel comfortable doing that at that point, doing anything, writing anything down is better than nothing. So you're at least getting into that habit. So once you start making that habit, then maybe you can dive a little bit deeper. You can do journalism with poetry. You can write down music. You can document. You can make a chart if you want to. You can draw if that's how you journal. Like there's no limit to how you do it. It's more just that you're doing it for yourself and that you're expressing yourself through it as well.
Also, when you bring that up, there's no limit to how much you write. It could be a sentence. It could be a word. Like you said earlier, I'm angry or angry. It doesn't matter. Something. Document something, write something down. The length of it does not matter. It can be at one sentence for the day of how you're feeling and something at the moment. It doesn't matter.
And I think we need to touch on, too, like what you and I were talking about earlier about being overly critical about yourself, too. Like there's healthy ways to journal.
Absolutely.
And everything, too. And we talk about that, not watching that fine line between, being critical and having negative self-talk and everything, too. So, be sure that you're expressing yourself in a healthy way without being detrimental to yourself or your mental health or anything like that either.
Absolutely. I would say, I think that journaling is a beckoning call to the positive and a negative.
I agree.
If you have a lot of negative things to write out, do it. I don't care if it's the whole notebook, but then reflect on it. Look at it. Realize this is all who you are and where your mind's at. Like, reflect on it. You have all that negativity out there. Look at it, read it, and realize that is not okay.
Yeah.
Realize that something's off, and you need to do something about it. Heavy reflection is needed, the constant reflection.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I would say just be conscious of making absolute statements about yourself.
Be intentional.
Yes.
Yep. So if you're saying statements like "I'm worthless," nobody's worthless. But having even that in your head is going to be something that I think the way you write it down will show a lot. So I'm feeling worthless.
Yes.
Oh,
So
I like that.
I like
better.
that a lot.
The
Yeah.
the way you're communicating it because you're talking to yourself is so important. So you're not lying because you may feel worthless in that point, but you are not worthless as an individual, and you're going to be able to remind yourself of that. It's just-
Journaling, I did that on purpose because I did have something to say.
You're good.
But I heard you. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, the I feel statements I think are more impactful than the I am
and more
this.
forgiving.
Correct.
Yeah.
I am feeling worthless because of X, Y, and Z. I am
Oh, way to
feeling
stretch
sad
that, yeah.
because of X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Instead of I am sad. I am worthless. It gives action. It gives a cause and reaction to what you're feeling and everything rather than, hey, I'm this.
You can express an anxiety
Correct.
rather than just sitting in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I like that. Journaling is all about aiming up. It's aiming up, making life better, growing from it, growing from your reflection, doing better. I did want to get into with you, gentlemen, of how to start journaling. How do you start?
So my way of starting, super easy, just word vomit. So that's basically just write down whatever's coming to your mind to start with, and then throughout time you can kind of refine it. You can go with certain prompts if you want to, but the big part for me is I just write about my day, and then if I get stuck on something or if I feel like I'm just not, I don't have anything to write about something that made you angry that day. Everybody always has something that bugged them a little bit or ticked them off, and I think if you're writing that down, you're able to express it in a healthy way, and then you're able to see why that may have made you angry, and then you can at least get some growth on that.
I would say for me, I'm very similar with Levi too. Like it's just very kind of start with my day and everything too. But I definitely focus more on things that I know affected me that day. And I'm like, okay, this affected me because it brings up feelings of this from a previous entry or something that happened before. So it gives me the time to reflect on that deeper than what I would just in the moment. And I'm just sitting there like, man, I'm angry about this, or man, like this really hit me hard. How can I reflect on this? And then I will, especially when it comes to situations, like I'll write out the situation and then put bullet points underneath and be like, hey, like this is what I'm feeling, and kind of like web off of that and, say, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is why I'm feeling this way.
Do you guys document the day and time and the year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I put date, time, year, like what day it is. Sometimes I'll put the weather. One thing I've been doing lately is I'll write
The weather.
Yeah, like what
That's
type
cool.
of weather.
I never thought about that.
I'll put good morning in all caps every single day just to kind of make myself get psyched a little bit.
Okay.
We forget about how the weather affects us though too. Like, I mean, we're getting into the
Yes, we are.
Winter
is coming.
Winter is coming. We forget about, seasonal depression and everything too, especially as we get into the, colder months, the winter months and everything too. And that has a huge effect on our mental health, and it has an effect on our journaling too. So I think we need to recognize that especially as we get into, November, December, January,
Yes.
throughout the new year and everything too.
I agree with you all the way on that one.
25.
Absolutely. Funny fact?
25.
I thought you said funny fact. Oh. All right, so we'll go to the next step. We'll backtrack that even further. You guys said how you start journaling. Let's get into how we actually pick the notebook up or sit down at the table, or how do we know that, hey, it's time to journal?
I think it has to be intentional every day.
Yeah.
I think you need to create time space. You need to create space for it. Just like we create space for other people and everything, we need to create space for ourselves to be like, have that self-reflection period and journal. There shouldn't be a event or something like that is created because of it. It should be intentional for you to reflect on the day. It's just like meditating, like you said. It's forced me to meditate. Should be one of those things that we're intentional. We're trying to grow. So We need to sit down, whether it be at night, in the morning, when works best for you.
How do you do it?
So I typically do it after my day.
Okay.
So just because it allows me the time frame to kind of use my mornings and everything and just kind of get in that mindset. And then when I'm done, I can look back on the day and be like, okay, this is kind of where my head was at throughout the day.
What about you, Levi? Walk us through how you actually start your journal, walk through your door.
Yeah, so I do in the morning. So I allocate about an hour and a half time where I'm journaling, and then if I finish journaling or if I have nothing left to journal, then I'll read a little bit. But I try and do that every single morning for at least a little bit of time. And one thing I like to do as well is just write some gratitudes on the top of each page, just like 3 or 4, just to remind me of things I can be thankful for that day.
Starting your morning off right?
Yep. And then I'll bring that journal with me, and then if anything is weighing on me throughout the day, I'll usually just jot it down real quick, or I could just jot down how I'm feeling in that moment, just so I'm aware of it, and just so I don't know, I feel like writing it down gives me a way of expressing it and gives me a way of letting that feeling go.
I have my hour of time carved out in the morning, hour to an hour and a half at most. Sometimes I adjust with the balance of life, and sometimes I only have 30 minutes. And I'll make that work. I have 3 places. I'll clear my bed off, make my bed up in the morning. I'll clear my bed off and sit down with my notebooks and the book I'm reading. Or I'll sit down at my work table. Or I'll go to my living room where I have a big window. I can look outside in complete silence and peace, and put a small table down there and write. First thing I start off with is writing my gratitude. I have a certain notebook for my gratitude, or you can write it in your journal. And I write down 3 things. The next thing I do is I reach over and I grab my affirmations journal. And I have a few pages of affirmations that I go through, certain words that hit me and instill, so that I no longer think I no longer think negative, sorry. And I repeat those affirmations, and I read them out loud, and then I read them in silence, and I do that a couple times. And every now and then I'm able to do that 3 or 4 times a day, where I just look at them real quick, need some positive words, feed my brain again, and go right back to it. And then I pull out my book, and I will pull out my book and I'll read anywhere between 2 and 10 pages. And some days I can only read one because I'm in a rush and I need to get to work and I need to balance that. And I give myself grace, and I'm okay with that. And I don't knock myself in the head because I only got 1 page today, or I was only able to read 1 page of affirmations, or I was only able to get a line of journaling when I'm done. I give myself a grace with that, because I know that an hour and a half isn't going to be done every day.
Yeah.
So, give yourself grace with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's important too. You can't always have like the strictest rules when it comes to that kind of thing. You need to have a little bit of bend, a little bit of pliability, because there are things that can go on in life where you're not able to be as consistent as you would like to be. I think it just comes to a point where you have to keep reminding yourself to do it, so that you keep on doing it, even if there's certain days that slip, and if there's certain things that, like, oh, I missed it today, like that can happen. But it's about how you come back at it the next day.
Yes. Are you guys okay with complete silence when you're journaling, or do you need music or something in the background?
I'll do silence, or I've noticed when I read, I like.
All right, we are back, and we left off on how to actually start journaling. What do we do? What type of music do we listen to, or do we sit in silence?
That's what it was.
Does your time switch? Not your time. Does how you journal switch?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're falling into a rut, I think it's important to try and switch it up, change how you're journaling. So usually I do word vomit. There's also times when I'll do poetry. I'll write like a short haiku, something like that. I think it's fun, and it's also challenging a little bit, because then you're.
Is that 575?
Mm-hmm. Because then you're writing within a certain guideline, Yeah. Other things that you can do if you're feeling like you're stuck: change your scenery, go out in nature, journal outside. you can listen to music. I personally listen to classical music, but I also listen to lo-fi beats, stuff like that. I can't do lyrics just because it mixes with what I'm writing and then gets all jumbled. So I like to listen to music without any lyrics on it.
I can listen to certain speakers speaking while I'm journaling. I can do it. I listen to certain. I have different depending on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I sit in absolute silence. Sometimes I'm in nature. Sometimes I have a speech playing in the background. Sometimes I have feel good music for me, lo-fi beats. It all depends on how I feel. And a lot of times when I know something needs to be, my aim needs to be fixed, I definitely sit in silence and I listen to myself because that noise, that silence gets loud. And your thoughts get very loud and it's calling to you. So that's when okay, here we are. Let me write this down and figure this out. How do you do yours?
My big one is like I listen to. I know this is weird, but I listen to '80s music because it reminds me of my mom. My mom's a big person in my life. I've talked about her numerous times on this podcast, and Gary's met her and everything too. And she's
Wonderful woman.
She is
Wonderful.
amazing. Love her to death. She's the person that I call every day after I get out of work. I'm like, hey, headed home from work. You know, she's that person for me. And anytime I journal, I always kind of bring her into it too. So I always listen to music.
She's very loving and uplifting.
Yeah.
She's very real, loving, and uplifting. Every time I've run into her, I had the opportunity and the pleasure of meeting. She's very loving and uplifting. It's not overboard or anything. She loves you.
Yeah, that's just
nice.
That's just her. So
Just her.
yeah, and you know, especially on those hard days and everything too, I'm gonna fucking start crying because it's my mama.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, that's sweet. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the music is something that puts you in a headspace where you're feeling that love and feeling uplifted, and it's helping you
Yeah.
journal from the place in your heart where you feel that warmth and that comfort from your
Yeah.
mom.
Well, and it's like even on those hard days and everything too, when I, you know, listen to that music, you know, I'm not so much listening to the music itself. I'm listening to the lyrics of the music. You know, I think there's a study done with that. But my mom's still there with me, and she's still there to love me, support me, care for me, and help me get through it. So that's my way of bringing her into it too. So
I like that.
yeah.
Before we close this out, are there any points you guys want to make about life, about journaling, about reflection?
Just go easy on yourself. Life's hard enough as it is. Yeah, like I know, like I am one to talk because I am my own worst enemy on the best of